China's now getting into a very, very strong position in the world. Xi Jinping will be more confident than ever before, feel more powerful than ever before. So whatever the Prime Minister says about Hong Kong, realistically, Xi Jinping is going to ignore that.
Keir Starmer is off to China. We'll ask what he might be able to win for the UK and what the cost could be. Will the Conservatives and Reform accept they're really on the same side? And have we had enough of rip-off parking charges? Plus, we might talk about love letters. Some of you have had time to read some of the ones that Stig mentioned earlier. And Amanda says, I'm not a prude, but I'm not sure I'd like to receive a letter of this sort. I suspect they were written for his own gratification. They're not love letters, they're lust letters.
Yeah, they are lust letters, and all the better for it, in my opinion.
There you go.
Should we talk about China?
Yes.
Keir Starmer's off to China. William, you've written about China in the paper today. Really interesting piece. I do wonder, though, that there's an awful lot of diplomatic dancing that goes on when it comes to China. And it strikes me that we always end up, perhaps naturally, in this balance between, yes, they're economically important, yes, they're also hostile in numerous ways. Do we get the balance right with what we get from that position?
Well, good question. It is a balance. Absolutely. We've got to hold in our heads at the same time that a country can be quite a big problem, quite a big threat in many ways, particularly with espionage and cyber attacks, but that you can also cooperate it, and that it's a big enough nation in the world that you have to cooperate with it on all sorts of issues, on climate, on arms controls, on the world economy, and so on. So it is always a balance. And it's always very difficult. I've pointed out in my article, when you visit, I used to find this when I was Foreign Secretary, you want to bring up lots of human rights cases. Now there's Hong Kong. Since then, everything so bad happened to Hong Kong. The Prime Minister should be bringing that up. But at the same time, they buy about £30 billion a year of British goods, of our cars, of our luxury items, clothing, beauty products, all this sort of stuff. They're our sixth biggest export market. So it is right for the Prime Minister to go. It's just he's going to find, on top of all the other headaches he's going to find this quite a difficult balancing act the next few days.
And actually, because Helena Kennedy, very legitimately, she's been sanctioned by China. She wants Jimmy Lai to be freed. But how does it work in practice? My suspicion, William, you can tell me if this is true or not, that there'll be an agreed reference to Jimmy Lai, but with no expectation that there'll be movement on it. And then they can come back and say, yeah, we did mention Jimmy Lai. We did raise the issue. But it's done in a way with everyone looking each other in the eye and not actually expecting anything to change.
Well, that's terribly cynical, but entirely true. That is how it works. Yes, yeah. That is what will happen. And I've no doubt the Prime Minister will be sincere about raising those cases. But of course, China, part of the point of my article is China's now getting into a very, very strong position in the world. Xi Jinping will be more confident than ever before, feel more powerful than ever before. So whatever the Prime Minister says about Hong Kong, realistically, Xi Jinping is going to ignore that. And just like Peter Frankopan was saying earlier in the programme, I really hope the Prime Minister sees just what is happening in China, the huge investment in self-sufficiency in many key technologies, and they are building up for a confrontation with the United States over Taiwan and preparing to win that confrontation. So this is something Britain has to learn from fast.
And Kezia, in practice, does that mean even for a left-wing government that they might have to be good capitalists here and say there's lots of things they won't agree with China about? He's a human rights lawyer, Keir Starmer, after all, but it's all about growth.
Of course, and that's why this trip is important and a long time overdue. It'll be the first time a Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has gone to China in 8 years, and it should be welcomed for that. Look, I think this plays very much to Keir Starmer's strengths. He has the temperament for this type of diplomatic engagement. He is, as you have argued, able to hold two thoughts at the same time. The idea that China is both a threat and an opportunity, and guide the country through the threats and opportunities that flow from that. William's already argued that China represents Britain's sixth largest exporter and reeled off all the different things that we export to China. He missed out whiskey, though, which is another crucial part of that list.
Of course,
I'm sure
Scottish whiskey.
The finest. So I'm sure that will be high up the agenda as well.
We heard there's a story that Anna Mihailova stood up for us on this programme, William, that when the last Prime Minister went there, she was told she couldn't get naked in her hotel room, and in fact her aides had to surround her with a sort of jerry-built tent because the Chinese will be filming you in your room, and you don't want compromising films of the Prime Minister. Did you have to take steps like that as Foreign Secretary? How much do you listen to that and nod your head and say, yeah, that's what you have to do when you travel to countries like China?
Yes, you do have to, in some countries of the world, not all of them, I'm glad to say, you do have to take a lot of precaution, and you do have to assume that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you are being spied on. Now, there are, of course, lots of precautions. You don't have to stay in a hotel. There are, one of the reasons we have embassies around the country is they are more secure places to stay, although embassies can be infiltrated by, of course, by agents of other countries sometimes. So certainly this is a problem, and I think more a problem with all digital communications. And the sort of thing you can expect in China, for instance, is that if you're sitting in a meeting facing the Chinese delegation and you've got your notes out in front of you, in all probability there's a camera in the ceiling reading your notes, so they're reading your notes the same time as you are. And or even before you are, that sort of thing, and that means that you have to confound them by saying it all off the top of your head.
Well, before we move off this, because I'm just really wanting to ask the question: did you ever have to get dressed under the bedclothes to avoid being filmed? Is really what I want to know, William.
Oh no, I'm quite relaxed.
Yeah, that's the spirit. Bringing naturism to China. That's the attitude I think we need to take.
That's what they're interested in.
Good luck to them. Well, there we go. That's Chinese diplomacy done. I think we've solved that particular global issue.